Ready?
Yes.
Yeah. So, hi, Steven. How are you?
I'm good, Nick. Thank you for having me, man. Vibes. Like, you got a good setup here, bro. I love
Thanks.
it.
Thanks. Yeah. So we spoke a while ago when I first started having the podcast on audio version only. Yeah.
That was a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, I think, probably like 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think since that conversation, I said to myself, you're like the youngest, oldest person I know. Because I mean it because like usually when we say someone is old, like it gives the impression that you can get knowledge from this person.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that we assume if you're old, you have a lot of experience. You must have had a lot of experiences, But you're young, but you've had so many experiences in that short time gap that it's just it's fascinating in some way.
I don't know if I'm young anymore. I think I'm almost a fossil now at this point.
No, you're still, I mean, you are still there. Yeah. But yeah, I guess I want to start by, like you can give us your background story.
Sure. Grew up in Usakos, as they say in my mother tongue. That's little town on your way to Stockholm. If you blink, you'll probably miss it.
Okay.
Moved over to Kariba when I was about grade 1, just close by there, and grew up with my grandparents. Came to Windhoek when I was in about 10 years old. Came to Windhoek. At that point, I couldn't even speak English or Afrikaans because our teaching was happening all in Kokogobab. So I pretty much had to learn to speak Afrikaans and English. I still can't speak Afrikaans that well, but I learned English watching TV.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Sesame Street, Dragon Balls, you know what I mean? Tom and Jerry. And literally I would be staring at the TV screen like 2 centimeters away because I was just like, oh my days.
Yeah.
That's how I learned to speak English. Realized very quickly that in order for me to navigate this world, I need to be able to gain new skills very quickly. I almost failed that year because, again, I couldn't learn very quickly. But then after that, subsequently, I was, I think, one of the best in that subject matter, in English at least, which was fun. And that's where my love for languages came, and the idea of just learning and getting new information has always been there. I'm very curious. I think I'm a curious human being by nature. A bit of a serial optimist. I believe things are always going to be good and better. And so throughout my journey, like I'm a product of really public school, the Namibian public school system, raised from Janyonkar and Kartura to UNAM. And after that, having opportunities to explore the world, which is really because of the amazing people, mentors that came into my life that just saw incredible potential and kind of gave me opportunity, really. My first time out of the country was when I was 16. I had saved up some cash for my 16th birthday and went to Joburg with a friend of mine. It was a road trip as well. That's absolutely life-changing. Wow. Because I think for the first time, coming from Kariba, coming to Windhoek, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a humongous city. Like, is there anything bigger than this? And I'm going to Joburg, I'm like, oh, days, like, this is crazy. Like, it just doesn't end. And I guess and then meeting people there, everybody's so kind and people are so generous. And I guess that's where I started to see that human beings, regardless of where we find ourselves, we have almost like a propensity for goodness. I found myself, I even tell a story that I got off a couple of years later when I was in Joburg. I got off on the wrong side of the Gautrain station and eventually found myself walking in a little bit of a dodgy area. And then I didn't realize because I was pulling my suitcase away.
No, Joburg is not safe. It's not. It has a reputation for not.
It has a reputation, right?
Yeah.
But what has been fascinating for me is, but the Uber guy was like, "Oh my gosh, bro, you must get out of here quickly." But then again, I think I come into every country that I travel to, every place that I go to, with that same level of curiosity. So I feel like I belong in South Africa. I feel like when I go to whichever country, when it's in the continent, when I go to Morocco, Benin, the US, Europe, I don't feel like a foreigner. I think because I believe that people are inherently good. And 2, I think the energy that we continue to provide and give, I think can come back to us tenfold in that sense. So I guess that has shaped a lot of how I've kind of viewed the world and how I come in that place. And a lot of people have been generous to me. And I think that has skewed my worldview as well, materially. I don't think it's the same experience for everybody, but I also try then to do the same, right? To pay forward that which I've also learned as well. So that ended up me doing I did my studies in social work and mental health work, and then kind of ended up going into the nonprofit space, which is activism, human rights. Again, because I realized for myself that Stephen was as exceptional as I was, there are many more talented young people who are similar to me, but don't often have the opportunities or access that I have had, or the privilege that I've had to have this access to actually fulfill their potential and to fulfill their dreams. So part of my advocacy and activism work was really to say, when we started Young Achievers at about, I was 14 years old in 2004.
14 years old.
Yeah, with a couple of friends and our mentor, Miss Pandu Hailonga and Dr. Lejeune Lockett, who were equally just passionate about young people. We just said, let's gather together and get other professionals to come speak to us, inspire us as young people in Karutura. Like, what other professions are there beyond nursing, teaching, and police? And they are just life-changing for me.
But at 14 years old, what made you think, okay, what is the advocacy about, maybe?
So I guess the advocacy really was inspired by that work, right? So it was, a couple of our friends were like, we want to finish school, but we don't know what to study. And so one of my friends then spoke to Mepandu, who is one of our mentors, who came to speak to us about careers and the career that she was busy with. We're like, hey, shucks, it'd be so cool if you can get other people who have similar backgrounds to come and share their stories of how did they navigate school, what subjects did they study. Because at that point, we were like grade 10, grade 11, bro, right?
Yeah.
So we're just like, I don't know what's going on. So we hear like someone like Estelle Chibuka came to speak to us as a forensic accountant. We've never even heard what that person, like what that even means, right? So we had those quite like high level people speak to us about engineering, and somebody also came to say they're in science and medical doctors, etc. So really, really inspired, and it opened up our world in terms of what's available. And then that organization just grew by itself, really, across the country. Where young people were just facilitating those themselves, finding mentors in their communities and saying, come and share, take an hour out of your Saturday, come and share your story with young people. And that's when I realized there is a lot of potential here. Then the second story was that a friend of mine, an A student, straight A student, brilliant guy, except I was better in English, but everything else he pretty much beat me. Like he was 90s killing it. Very, very bright. I don't know how he studied, right? He was like, read like a page 2-3 times and then know what to do. I'm like studying my bum off all the time. And we all thought like, this dude is going to become one of the best professionals, probably going to medicine or going to like legal, fraternity or accounting, because it was just brilliant across the board, right? Fast forward a couple of months after we finished our grade 10 results, came back late to school. And then there was a couple of circumstances that really happened in his life that just caused him not to get into university. He didn't have funding at that point in time. He couldn't get into uni and pretty much started doing odd jobs. A decade later, when I still see him here and there, he has literally dropped out, like he has not pursued any further career and has not had any social mobility for himself. And that again showed me that it's not that we lack talent in our country, although we lack talent with young people on the continent, is that there's reduced opportunities. Social mobility challenges are there. Socioeconomic issues continue to hold a lot of young people back. And those of us who have the opportunity where doors are open for us, we have to be able to speak a bit louder and provide opportunities for others to come in as well.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, there's a lot I took from that, especially, where you said from a young age of 14, you started this advocacy thing. And I know there's a lot of people that see issues in society and they want to address those issues. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've picked up is that you mentioned that you guys were in a group, right? It's not just like one person. There's one thing I've noticed that a lot of people they find themselves alone and they're trying to solve an issue by themselves. That can work, but it seems to take longer to do it, and it's exhausting. If you guys group together and focus on one specific aim, that seems to be the cheat code to making it sort of like.
And it's finding people with similar vision. Like we didn't even think that we're doing a thing. Right.
And it's just like a problem that you wanted to solve for yourself.
Right? Yeah. And it just happened that it just grew naturally. And I think that's the kind of model that I love, because I think it's not us trying to engineer problem solving from the outside in and say, oh, I see there is a problem there. Let me come as an outsider and try and solve it.
Yeah.
It's saying, how do we facilitate conversations? Because that's how it happened. There was a conversation that we had between a couple of us. We're like, hey, well, what are we going to go study? We don't know. I don't know. Oh, let's ask this person. And I think that's what it needs to be, right? And it's helping then people to take ownership, right? And have agency to be able to solve their own problems. Because again, when you think about potential, we all have the talent, I would say, to actually engage, but maybe sometimes can feel like there's a narrative or a script that has been said that this community or this group of people or these people from this specific background will not achieve to anything. And those kind of narratives, right, when you think about it from a mental health perspective, have an impact. The narratives we tell ourselves about our communities, our families, etc. And I think when somebody says, you take the lead, and they take the lead, as we have done, right, as at 14 years old, and then we surprise ourselves or we actually get stuff done. You're like, wow, that narrative gets broken right there, right? Because you're like, but if I can do this, if I can overcome this barrier, then there's nothing that can stop me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way that I've always even approached my advocacy work, is saying, how do I come together with those who are already doing the work? When I get into a community that is not necessarily my own, how do I become part of it? And how do I lead from the back, right? And how do I support from the back? As opposed to saying, let's try and transplant solutions. I think that's where things die, because if you're the one driving the solution, nobody's taking ownership of it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, since you've been in this advocacy, arena for quite longer, right?
Too long.
there's a question that I think okay. Yeah. But there's a question that I think is a little bit maybe if I ask you, you might have more sort of information points to answer it.
Sure.
Because it's like they say most of your success depends on you, right? At least a huge part of your success depends on you. It's like there are issues to complain about. Obviously, you're born in let's say a country that's a little bit down the economic scale compared to others. Maybe you're born in a family that does not have the means. And but these are excuses, and these are actual real problems that some people face, or most people face, right?
100%.
Yeah, but now, I mean, the onus is on you to excel. But what I've noticed is if it's a bit difficult to think of thriving when you're in a situation of survival. Like you're just trying to eat for
100%.
So some people that have that base sorted out, it's easy for them to focus on things to get. Like there was this study that they discovered that people that have less, actually, let's say for example you have $100. The first thing you're gonna be thinking of is, maybe let me buy chips or something. Just short-term thinking. But if you have more, you're thinking about, where can I invest this? Where can I do that? The more you have, the more you think of thriving. The less you have, you're just trying to survive. Just
holding on to survive.
Yeah. What is your? I mean, it's easier. Some advice would be very easy to say. If you're in a situation where you have most of the level things figured out, just try and put in the work. But what about the person that's on the other side of the
equation?
Yeah.
No, completely agreed. And I think that's where, again, the story of my friend comes very strongly, because what my studies in social work has taught me and helped me to find language for that experience is that we live in a systemic world, right? So Steven lives in a system of a family. So he's not isolated. He's impacted by what's happening in his family, which lives in a community. So his family is impacted by what's happening in his community, as is he. And he impacts his family, and his family impacts society. Then that society also lives within the broader economics, macroeconomics of what's happening globally, nationally, etc. So we cannot divorce all these multiple issues that are happening and having an impact directly on you and you on them. So you may be less on them than they on you. And I think that's where we can end up blaming people for not reaching their full potential. I would say the reason why I made it, for example, is not because I'm more talented than my peers, is that I had a little bit more support maybe than they did, right? It's not that our education system is necessarily exceptional and therefore I thrived. I think in spite of it, I made it, because the proof has to be in the pudding, right? How I think about often is saying, if we provide a broad support, and for example, for argument's sake, we say 70% of the young people that are coming through our system or through our society have social mobility, then the 30% that fall through the cracks, you are like saying, well, we've given you the best opportunities. Look at 70% have already made it. How have your 30% of you not done it? Right now, the inverse is for us, where about 30%, even less than that, are thriving and 70% are not. So then you have to then ask, is it an individual issue or is it a systemic issue? And if it's a broad number of people that are negatively impacted, then I think it's a systemic issue. And we cannot then also run away from the realities of issues like malnutrition, which has an impact on your growth as a young child, language, poverty, lack of food, lack of education. All of those compound and become barriers to your success. It's almost like there's so much you need to overcome. Even when you think about lots of young people being locked into their regions because they can't, for example, come to Windhoek because their languages are not offered in Windhoek, for example, something like that. Or a child is thriving and is doing academically well, but they don't have the funding to be able to support them. Maybe they can even go to university for free, but the parents don't have money to pay for their accommodation, pay for their other existing financial needs that they have while they're studying. So all of those things have a direct impact on how your development is growing. And I think we take for granted that just because a few people make it, that we say like, oh, look at that. Like, look at this person has done it. Why are you not doing it? I think that's a unfair ask. I think we have to be able to be more compassionate and kind about how we do respond to people. And I think our country is small enough for us to strengthen our systems. I think we have all the ingredients. We have everything that we need really in place to have a thriving country. I think we need to get those connections right. And I think we shouldn't try and solve stuff from a symbolic level, but actually do the work, the hard work, the unsexy work of saying, if I have to track Steven from the time that his mom is pregnant all the way through to the time that he's independent at 20 or 21 years old, how are we making sure that we're closing any gaps where he may fall through the cracks? I think that's incumbent upon us as a society. Because I think the vulnerabilities of children, for me, shows where the gaps are. Because they don't have capacity to protect themselves. It's on us as a society to protect them. And I guess we have to look at it on a bigger scale. I think it's saying we have to have a little bit more wider and long-term vision, even from a business perspective as well, right? To say, when we're making investments, we cannot just come in and say, we're going to give a bursary at university. Fam. If you have not invested in the education right from the get-go, from the foundation, the people that come out at university level or even make it to university are a small crop of the broad number of young people that are falling through our education system. So I think we have to be able to think a little bit more systemically in our response. I think right now it's a bit isolated, and that's frustrating because real people's lives do matter, right? When you think about even teenage pregnancy, like the high rates of HIV, and we just say, oh, children mustn't sleep around. But fam, they are mitigating factors and they're extenuating risks and vulnerabilities that many of these young people are exposed to. So we have to be able to interrupt that harm as far as we can. And I think when we don't lead with compassion and lead with grace and saying, what can we do to make things easier for those who are vulnerable, who are for the least in our communities, then I think that's where we then go into a little bit of a high horse energy. It's like,
true.
It's because you're not doing anything.
True.
Fam.
True. There's something nice you mentioned about leadership, but I want to go back to Okay, so let's say right now there's two forces involved. There's what the government can do, and that's the government's prerogative to focus on solutions for that. And there's on the individual level, the person himself.
100%.
And I think especially men now, and when you look at the mental health stats, like it's with men, it's really bad.
Shocking.
It's really shocking. I think there was probably a stat, and I'm not sure if I saw it yesterday or before yesterday, where there were about like 105 people that took their lives, right? 154 or something, and 108 were men. You know, out of the percentage is really, really huge, right? But I think it makes sense because as men, you feel like you have to provide, you have to raise a family. You know, the burden of performance is on you, right? How should someone, as a man that's in that situation, what mental state should they adopt? How should they be thinking like? Because if they just think like, hey, these are systemic issues that the government has to solve, then they're just sitting there waiting for the government to fix something.
Sure.
And usually when you sit and wait, nothing really happens. Yeah. So how should a person like that, what mental model should they be adopting?
That's a good question. I'll answer it in two formats. I think we need to still push on a systemic level, because how I often talk about it is, having worked both in the public office and in the nonprofit space, I can see the value of both, right? When you work in a nonprofit and you take like a couple of dudes and we say, we're going to do some work, you can go very deep in terms of saying like, where are the challenges? Maybe you don't have work. Do we need to provide some skills? Maybe where you are is limited work opportunities, employment opportunities are where you are. Maybe it's considering going to a different place. All of those kind of things. We can do a lot of deep work, but that work cannot replicate on a broader scale. So you're doing one or two people at a time, which is fine. It's just good because I think you're changing people's lives. I think that's good. Where I think we still need to do both in that is do the deep work, but also push government to do broad work. Because if Steven is not there or Nate is not there, then that work falls through the cracks. We have to be able to make sure that regardless of whether we're president or not, that work continues. On a personal level, when I speak to men particularly, the rate of suicide is materially high for men. Women attempt suicide more than men, but men are more fatally harmed or injured by suicide because they're more lethal in the way that they commit suicide. And suicide ideation, or the time that men start to think about, is this worth it, and trying to find ways out, we have to be able to think about what are those red flags. So what are the coping mechanisms that we're using? Because the idea, again, I so challenge the thing of men don't speak. I think men do speak. It's just that we have a different language with which we speak, and we've not, and society has not done the work to decrypt that language, and then are saying this is the way that we think men must speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So women use more words than men, for sure.
Sure.
Right?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Doesn't mean men are not speaking. He may be quiet, you may not use as many words, but you have to look at the actions, you have to look at the nonverbals, etc. Often we use red flag, harmful ways to cope, right? So you go into substance misuse, whether it's alcohol every weekend, sometimes gambling, drugs, substance misuse in that perspective, infidelity. So you go outside of your relationship looking for some self gratification. And the general feeling, at least, is that when you use those things to cope, you're not confronting what is going on. And because you're not confronting what is going on, the stresses that are inside of you continue to build up. The nice thing about what women do is they go to the girlfriends and they speak, and then they feel great after they have vented. Even if the two of us just go hang out.
Yeah.
We don't be like, oh, Nate, so what's going on?
Yeah.
You'll be like, it's all right.
Fine.
It's good.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's got some problems to work. And that's it.
Yeah.
The conversation is done. But we have to find other means to be able to help you relieve that stress. So if you're not speaking, sports again is a big one. Let's go to a soccer game. All right. Let's sign up for 7-a-side community situation.
But on that point, if I may, do you think because men and women are wired differently? Right?
100%.
Yeah. And this I've heard that men have testosterone, and testosterone is usually sort of enforces dopamine. So dopamine is you chasing after something, and you only get satisfied once you've acquired that thing.
Yes.
You know. So now everything that you're trying to present to me in between, it doesn't solve it, because I want the thing to be fixed. Like,
you want it to be fixed, but I think you have to find new strategies to engage that, right? So what I was saying is, instead of saying let's have a conversation to try and problem solve, which is not going to solve it, you need to find other ways for you to release that energy, that pent up stress within your body. Whether it's a physical activity, which I think is a big one, whether it is taking some time out and say like, okay, let me just go and find something that I can do. For example, saying, I can't get a job, I can take care of my family. What can I do? For example, let me then clean up my yard, right? Give yourself a win that you're able to say, I'm going to just focus on here. Because the more you just sit in that what cannot be done, the more you're going to find yourself up in this rabbit hole. So it's finding those small wins to give you that gratification.
Nice.
So instead of going to like, let me go drink to satisfy myself, find I can't even say a positive thing, something that's not as harmful, right? Whether it's saying, let's go to a match and go play there, or whether it's saying, I'm going to try and put some stuff together, ask a couple of folks and say, can I wash your car?
It's like you're trying to find a win.
Try and find smaller wins, as opposed to saying, here's this large thing that's out of my control, right? All that you can do is apply. It's take a curriculum, you apply, hope for a job, right? Yeah. That is not coming in. What is within your control that you can do? Because what we are looking for is some sense of meaning. Because otherwise it feels I'm not contributing. What's the point of being alive if I'm not adding any value? So find ways to be able to add value. Even if it's just saying, I was even telling somebody that, go volunteer, right? Yes, it doesn't gonna pay you, but at least it gives you a sense of purpose. To wake up and say, I'm gonna walk down the street at the church and say, I'm gonna just help you guys pack the chairs. Because that gives you some level of community and some level of engagement without having to say, I'm not getting employment or I'm not providing for my family and this is not working. Ultimately, what we want to create, of course, is social mobility for men to be able to have access. For us to get up in equality, right, is that we need to give capital in the hands of our people. Without capital, you cannot make decisions. Your choices are limited without capital. And we also can't just say start a business. You need capital to start a business.
You need capital for everything.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's thinking about in that context. And then how I also talk to, particularly around men in socialization, is saying we have had a culture where we had demonized men for not articulating or showing their emotions. And it's a societal issue. Because when he's a young boy, you say, don't cry, don't speak, don't whatever, be strong, whatnot. And then when he's in a relationship, you're like, you're not telling me how you're feeling, what's going on.
Yeah.
You're not articulating yourself. I don't know what's happening in your mind. You almost want to flip the circumstance. And I think we have to be able to interrogate that and say, what are we as a society building that continues to entrench this almost harmful masculinity, right? That doesn't say like, actually, I am having some challenges. So when you're in a relationship, for example, and you're saying, I'm going to be struggling for the next 3 months, whatever. I don't have a job. I don't have this opportunity, whatever. Or you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of hustling, doing what your thing. We then say, your partner is coming in, your girlfriend's coming and say, like, I'll sustain us for a bit, right? Until you get on your feet and you push. And then you're in a place, maybe she is also struggling at some point, you kind of cover each other. So that partnership is something you don't talk about. And I think what society or social media has even done more for us is then almost amplified this a lot more. Because now it's like the way that I show love or stuff like that is that I need to be providing. And I mean, some of the social media videos saying that unless the dude makes X amount of figures, don't even talk to me. You know what I mean? Now
it used to be like the standard of performance was just like your immediate surrounding. Now you're competing with people that are way past you.
Way past you, bro. And then now it's like you gotta have like a nice reel for your couple goals. You know what I mean? So there's definitely real pressure that is on us. And I think it's materially difficult, especially for us on the continent and in Africa, because I think whenever we talk even about patriarchy and male privilege, there are layers to these issues as well, right? Yes, men do have privilege, but your privilege compared to a man in Europe is completely different. Your issues of race has an impact on your level of privilege, your socioeconomic standing. When you are born in poverty and inequality, that privilege is diminished, right? Whereas somebody who's born in wealth, etc. So I think sometimes we use a lot of this terminology loosely without actually saying what does it actually look on a nuanced level. When you're thinking about even where our men and boys are, like women are graduating more at university, even in Namibia, more than our men are. Boys are falling out of school. That's a crisis that we need to address. Because how do we then have a society where one gender is moving ahead? And I don't think we need to fight men and women against each other. It's saying, what do we need to do to make sure that we can close those gaps, to bring equal opportunities for our boys and men, women and girls in Namibia, right? Across the board. And what we find, unfortunately, is that because we don't have that sense of social mobility, vision, and direction, young men end up in very harmful, risky situations because that's where you find community. So when you're around with other dudes who are also not going to school, who are equally just chilling in the street, you join that. You exert power through violence because that's the only way you can feel like you're heard and you can show your value as a man in this space. You then go into issues around substance misuse that I've spoken about, because all of those things is I need to find my place and who I am, but I'm using a wrong avenue to do that. We have to be able to disrupt that harm for young boys.
Nice. In all your interactions with people in the advocacy and everything,
sure,
do you have positive case studies where you've seen people that were in a negative space and sort of seen them grow out of that?
Many, bro. Many. I think about even in just my street, there's young men that didn't have shoes to go to school, right? So partly why, and then everybody's like, oh, you're not going to school, he's not going to school, he's just rude, he's rebellious, he's angry. Nobody asked why you don't go to school. Yeah. And it's like, I'm embarrassed to go to school without shoes.
Without shoes. Everybody else has
shoes. He just said it in passing. And I think everybody continues to still scream at him like, you must go to school, you must do education, whatever. And we're like, okay, cool. Actually, let's get him the shoes then. Got him shoes. And he was able to go to school. And that speaks to dignity.
Yeah.
Because as much as you say, it's your education, you understand the circumstances, whatever you're going through, we live in a society that is ruthless, and kids in school, bruv.
Kids are the cruelest.
They are the cruelest, bro.
Yeah.
So something as simple as not having shoes, simple in my opinion, is something that is keeping a young man from saying, I want to access this. I can't go to school because of this. And so it's thinking about what are those small needs that we can try and meet, that the person feels like I can also show up, right? So we saw that change happen with these young men continuing to do that. A lot of the programs that we've been part of with Lifeline Childline, a lot of guys were calling us on 106 line saying, I'm about to hit my girlfriend or my partner, I'm feeling very stressed, I'm feeling very angry. And on the phone we'll be de-escalating that conversation. Because we're like, thank you for calling. Actually, I want to say thank you for calling and being brave enough to say, I need help.
Yeah.
Many don't do that, right? And we've been able to then use those conversations to be able to say, hey, actually, it's cool. We've had X number of people coming in, calling us, engaging with us. We've engaged a lot of relationship counseling as well. Well, couples have come to us, spoken to us about what's happening in their relationship. And without judgment, we said, cool, this is what's going on. How are you going to be able to, what new strategies are you trying to apply here? And after 2, 3, 4 sessions, many of them have come through and said, hey, thank you so much. You've like really transformed our lives. And it's not because I necessarily did anything different or we did anything necessarily different. It's that we provided an opportunity for somebody to be heard. To say like, this is what's going on in my life. And I just need to kind of let it out.
Yeah.
In a place that doesn't even try and solve the issue. Because I think sometimes we overblow our sense of importance and say, oh, you must do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, and then things will be fine. Sometimes all somebody needs to hear is just, I need to get this off my chest and feel like I am safe to say whatever I want to say, and I will not be judged for it, and somebody can listen to me.
True.
Because again, in our culture, we don't have that culture of listening. Children should be seen, not heard. And now when they become adults,
it's too late to fix that.
They can't speak, right? So, and then the idea of I don't want to embarrass my family, so I can't speak about what's going on at home because I don't want people to think what's going on in my house. So the culture of silence that we have in our society continues to perpetuate where people don't seek for help. And we've seen that happen, that transformation happen. There was some programs that we did, even with the work that we're doing, around even changing young people's lives, right? Providing supplies for education, for school and stuff like that, and how that was transformative, right? To be able to even say like, oh, I'm going to give you pocket money as part of our scholarship in high school for, that was running for One Economy. To be able to say like, here is $100 for you to manage as you will. Because again, also when we are in this nonprofit space, we have to be careful that we're not coming to be saviors and taking people's agency away and say, I see what you need and I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it, as opposed to saying giving people agency, because what poverty and inequality often does, it takes people's agency away, their sense of choice away. Yeah. So being able to say, oh, this guy, he's asking or begging in the street, I'm going to give you bread.
I see. He's sort of helping, but you're stealing the dignity.
How do you instill dignity in somebody's life, right? Because I think that's something that is priceless. The sense of being seen as a human being and not as a problem, and as not something that I need to get rid of, like, you know what I mean, as an irritation. And I think often we do that. And I think it's sometimes out of frustration, other times out of like, we're tired because it's only as far as a human being can do this work. So I'm not even saying people are necessarily bad. I think we have to be a bit more, we have to slow down when we interact with people. And those who have a bit less than us. What I appreciated my time in Caribbean, which was really transformative for me, only when, like now as I'm growing older, is that my grandma always used to make a Sunday meal. And I never understood why she would always make more food than we need. And she would always give like 3 or 4 plates, give to this family, give to this person, give to this person. And then they would also make extra food, and we always had like extra food. Like there would be a plate of food that my grandma would have made, and maybe we'll get another plate of food from a neighbor or somebody else in the community that also gives some food. And I never quite understood it. I was like, we already have food. Like, why are you giving us more food? But what it showed me is that, one, there was a sense of community that people recognize that we don't have to wait for somebody to ask. We almost have to just, when we have more, we must just give more, right? We must be generous in our giving as opposed to waiting for somebody to ask. Because I think when somebody has to ask, again, that issue of dignity comes through, because it is undignifying.
It is.
To say, I don't have, please help me, right? And often we don't have a safe space to do that. While culture is moving, especially with social media and stuff, and we become much more isolated, even past COVID now, where the community sense is broken. And then people then don't reach out for help because they don't feel like they want to be seen as begging. And I think that has transformed how I even think about it. I don't wait for people to ask. If there's an opportunity to give, I try to give. Where I have friends around me that have opportunities or access, I say, let's provide this for this folks. Because I think we have to, there's a moral obligation for us to do that. I'm in a weird place that I find myself because I have left my socioeconomic positioning or opportunities that I've had have allowed me to break free from a lot of the stuff that was holding me back. But also given me insight to be able to see the issues are much bigger than any one person. And so for us to solve it, I have to bring other people with me to say, hey, what can we do to make things a little bit easier? Like I was talking to another friend who shared with me that there's a school hostel, and one of the things that they're asking for is washing powder to just wash the kids' clothes. Like,
yeah.
Again, if your child has to wear dirty clothes or, you know what I mean, because they can't wash them. You know what I mean? And I love that teachers are doing it not because of it's part of their job description. They're saying, give us washing powder so we can wash the kids' clothes because we also understand the socioeconomic positions of their parents at the school. They won't be able to afford it. And washing powder costs less than $100, $200 at best, right? And it's making those differences, right? Like where we are. It's not waiting for $1 million grant to come in before we can move. It's saying, I can't solve everything. Maybe all I can do is buy a packet of soup. Maybe all I can do is say I have an extra pair of shoes that I can give. Maybe it's just saying I don't even have anything to give you, but I can just come and hang out with you, right? And just be with you as a person. And that also makes a difference. I think sometimes we put ourselves under too much pressure to say, I can't solve everything. The unemployment crisis is so high, so there's nothing I can do. Maybe just saying, yes, I can solve it, but maybe I got an extra $100 here. What can I do to support somebody that's in my community? And I think if more of us start to become more generous, my grandma didn't have much. She was a domestic worker. But that idea of like, you don't have to have more before you do anything. With what you have, you can already make an impact. I think that has transformed how I think about it.
Yeah. Wow. I was thinking about leadership the other day, and it's just like you mentioned now, there's a lot of issues that are way too complex, like down in the trenches, the nuances are way too much. And there's no way for you to sort of have full perspective if you haven't interacted with people on a first-hand basis, you know? So I feel like sometimes, not to say people in positions of leadership on the highest level, I mean, you know, somewhere there in the middle. Maybe they have a bit of a disassociation between what's really out there and the type of life they're living, you know, because there was this, I think, book, The 5 Levels of Leadership. But the first one, I think the author's name is probably John C. Maxwell or something.
Yes, it's John C. Maxwell, yes.
Maxwell, yeah. So the first level is positioning. So that's just, they give you a position, right? So you walk into a company, like, who's the CEO? It's this person. So you respect the person because of his position, right? But the second level, he said, was permission. So that's where you are more social with people. When you're not there, it's like they speak about, you know, our boss is so good. Where's our boss if you don't show up, you know? And the third one is performance, where you actually perform, right? You are an influence where people want to become like you. So you lead by influence. It's like people see you and you don't have to tell them things to do. They just want to become like you, right? The biggest issue is most leaders seem to be stuck in position, you know, and the problems with stuck in position can give you some sense of maybe insecurity, maybe pride, because now because you don't have all the other two things.
Yes.
You're trying to force people to, you know, you're trying to force people to sort of realize that you are the boss, right?
Yes.
So you'd be dragging people to do this, do
Yes.
that, you know, and you lack perspective. You just don't get things done, you know.
Absolutely.
What is your take on that? So I was listening to him speak, and I went to read his book. So I was just like, that's a really good way of placing things out.
I love his survey.
People,
Yeah, I love John Maxwell. He's brilliant. I think the older I'm becoming, the less I think leadership is about position and more about, I think you are born a leader. I think it's a little controversial. I might get some pushback on your podcast, but
No, that's okay.
I think there is an innate sense of leadership. I think there's a gift of leadership people have.
Intrinsically,
Okay. I think you can learn to be a leader in the same way that you can learn to, if I really force myself, I'm not a big mathematician or accountant or whatever, but if I force myself, I'll probably navigate the situation.
Yeah.
But it's not who I am. And I think that you can learn the skill of leadership. And I think what positions often then do is we assume that you are a leader. And I think that's what it's not. I think you still have to do the work of leadership development. For me, and I think John Maxwell said it, right? Yeah. Are you a leader if nobody's following you?
Exactly.
You're just taking a walk. I think something along the lines that it says that, right? And I think that's a proof for me, is that without you coercing people are inspired by you, whether right or negatively, right? So there are some people who can inspire you to do the wrong thing, right? There are leaders in history that we've seen who equally stirred people up towards the wrong direction. But it's intrinsic in who they are. Therefore, for me, it's saying, and I think all of us have to a degree that I almost say it's like a muscle that's inside of us. And I think some people have maybe done the work of building it up and others have not. And I don't think it's about positions. I completely agree with you. Having a position doesn't necessarily mean that you're leading. Because somebody, as John Maxwell says it well as well, you can have the CEO of a company, but the person with the most influence in that company might be just a manager, right, in that company that nobody knows their name. But they are pretty much understanding how the machine is working.
Yeah.
What I think we need to talk more about is servant leadership. Because what does leadership mean for me? It's about serving. It's saying, I have this position, I have this opportunity, I have this power, but I need to yield the power to do the most good. Now, leadership in a private sector, it's a little bit different because there your power is to make money. Yielding your power to drive as much to the bottom line as far as possible. Yeah. But I think from a nonprofit or in public sector, and I think in general we're speaking, is using your leadership to lift as many as possible from where they are. Again, John Maxwell, from the point A to point B, where point B is a better place than point A. And I think for me, that's the measure. If you're able to say, since my interaction with this person, they are a little bit better off than before they met me, then I think I've led. If they are not, they're still in the same place. Am I really a leader or just a leader in title? What I think we often then take for granted, and when I think about leadership, is a friend of mine has been telling me about some work that they were doing in Ventuke in Karatura with women that are just having little soup kitchens in their house. Doesn't have an organization, is not registered, is not looking for funding, just saying, I see a bunch of kids that are hungry here. Let me just push some extra money aside. She doesn't have much as well, but makes a bit more food and then feeds 10, 15 kids in the street or just in the surrounding streets there. That's leadership.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, I see, because those kids are better off now that they've interacted with the lady than they were before, right? And I think we often overlook those, right? When you talk about even our liberation heroes, right? We can celebrate the people that have been in the forefront, but those in the forefront were carried by these broad folks that opened their homes, that cooked food, that hid passports along the way. So it's small groups of people in their own different individual capacities doing many things that led to the liberation of this country, right? And that for me again shows me that leadership is intrinsic in all of us. It's just that some of us have done, or some people have done more the work of training that muscle up. What I think where I see leadership going wrong is because when we stay in that position, we try to exert that influence. And if we're not influencing it from a positive level or inspiring people, we use excessive force, manipulation, anger. And we heard these like horrid stories around toxic work cultures where people are leaving and having anxiety, all that kind of jazz. That for me shows me that there is no leadership here. Because I think as a leader, you have to inspire people to be more, to say, whatever we're doing is bigger than us, right? Like we're part of something huge and stuff like that. I think we've normalized struggle. And that keeps me up at night. I think about even our HR processes, for example. I was telling a friend of mine how even the idea of like you're hiding questions from people, like, oh yeah, you can't do the questions. Just give everybody all your interviews or questions. Let them prepare to be the best version of who they are.
Yeah.
Because again, between the two of us, we go for a job interview. I talk a lot. Do I get the job because I talk a lot? And you don't because you don't talk as much as I am?
Yeah.
Or do you then take Steven's accent privilege and say, I think he's smarter, and then this guy is sounding too African or too Namibian, whatever that might be, or maybe he's not as articulate in English, he doesn't get a job. So I think there's even our own prejudice that we show up in these places, right? In terms of the culture that we're creating from a leadership perspective. So for me, it's like open up the HR process. If you're going to hire somebody in the company, don't advertise. Don't advertise the position, because what's the point, right? You put somebody else through this rigor moral of applying for a job and going for interview process, but you've got somebody already that you're going to hire. And then I leave that interview process feeling I'm not good enough. Maybe I could have done this, maybe I could have done that. It had nothing to do with me. And that for me tells me leadership, because there's no care and compassion for those who are dealing with. There was an interesting story that I want to share with you quickly, that I'd applied for a job in, and it transformed my life. I applied for this job, and this person said, okay, cool. So we love you, whatever. We're going to shortlist you for an interview. Send me the interview questions ahead of time. Said, I want you to prepare to be at your best self. We're going to share with all the candidates. Prepare yourself. Had a list of questions. I prepared the questions, went through it. That's brilliant. The week before the interview, I had all the questions. Weird, but I'm like, wow, fantastic. Second thing that they did is, after the interview, and there was a conversation, right? The questions were kind of more guiding situations. In one of the questions, for example, they said, tell us something that you anticipate might be a challenge for you when you get into this job. The idea is not, and then they put it in brackets, the idea is not for us to trap you, or it's not going to disqualify. The answers to this question are not going to disqualify you. We just want to make sure that we understand where your needs and limitations are, so that we can put support in place should you be the successful candidate.
Wow.
Boom.
What is going on?
Boom. Like, I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Right? So I was honest about it. I was like, well, I don't understand some of maybe this UK bits about the regulations of this sector, whatever. So that's something I would love to get some support in. Life-changing. Did the interview. Nice conversation, etc. They're like, okay, cool. You've been selected to our top 2 folks. You're going to have another meeting with one of our board members and our CEO. Immediately, like I think 2 days after that, they sent me that feedback. This is what we loved about the interview. This is some questions that we have about it. Maybe you didn't answer this question too clearly. Gave me comprehensive feedback. Spoke to the CEO and the board member. Same conversation. A day after the conversation, unfortunately, you have not been selected for the job. This person has gotten the job. We love this and this about you and what you shared in this part. The reason why we have chosen this other person is because of this skills that they bring to the table. Thank you so much for being part of this process. Nate, I walked out of that situation, having not gotten that job, but not feeling like I was less, or that I wasn't good enough, or that I did something wrong. What did they do differently? They communicated, kept me in the loop. 2, provided me with the best strategy to present myself at my best. 3, gave me feedback about that interview process and where I did well, where I didn't go well, etc. What I did is after they gave me that feedback, I was like, even though I don't have a job here with you guys, I'm happy to support you with whatever you need. Here's what I was thinking, what I wanted to do. Well, if I join you guys, here's some people I want you to connect with you guys. Please engage with these people. I'll volunteer for you people. Call me if there's anything that you need. Because what it did is I left more dignified out of that process than when I got it. And that's when it tells me that's leadership. Because people can understand the care that I take to prepare myself to show up for an interview, to go through this rigmarole, write my CV, all that kind of jazz, to say that what we need to do as employers then is also show that level of care and compassion really in that space. And that transformed how I think about leadership now for me. Because
it's driven by empathy more.
It's empathy, right? As opposed to saying, well, you didn't get it, Shem. You must just understand. There's just one person who can get a job. You know what I mean? The silent treatment, your ghost, you whatever. And that for me is leadership. Because that kind of leadership shows me then that you don't have care for the people that are in your organization. The reason I would love to be part of this organization is because I think they do the extra work of saying, even if it's going to be inconvenience, I know it's extra work. To now sit and give individual feedback. But it shows me that you're actually caring. And that for me is the kind of leadership that we need to start to engender within us. This idea of toxic work cultures, this idea of punishing people, screaming at people like they're your children, and the ideas of thinking even about when you say leadership, like you must respect, but you're not giving respect to the person we're both adults. You know what I mean?
True.
Yes, you might be having this position. You might be the CEO of this company, and I might just be a small secretary, but I'm a human being. I'm somebody's child. We have to be graceful about how we engage with people as well. And I think that's the kind of culture that we need to start to shift. But that's from a leadership level, not from a position level. Because I think often we think the more harsh we are, the more we're leading. And the more gentler or quieter you are, that you're almost going to get walked over.
Take advantage.
I think that's a false choice.
Nice. I really like it because I think when we think of leadership, we look at it as if it's a hierarchy, right? So we place the leader on top here.
Exactly.
But the way you put it is servitude. So you have you down here, you're trying to serve people upwards.
100%.
So I really like that. Yeah.
And like coming from that place of saying, I have some power, I have opportunity, I have privilege.
Yeah.
What can I do to make things a little bit better? Because of my presence. Right? It's not because I'm trying to become more rich. Right? I've what I have, right? I have opportunities, everything that I have. So I'm not trying to get more rich. Just saying, how do I make the door more open? How do I open it up so that others can have the same opportunities as well? It's also coming to the place of, as a servant leader, you realize that the responsibility that you have is to people, and those people have families, and those families are dependent on these people that are in your company or that you're serving. Even if somebody's volunteering for us, right? We have to be graceful. We have to be compassionate and say, you are taking the gift, and I call it a gift. It is a gift for somebody to come and volunteer for you. Without payment. It is a gift for people to be friends with you because they don't have to be your friend. You know what I mean? Like, you don't owe me that. You don't owe me anything. So it's a gift when you make time to spend with me. It is a gift when you use your expertise to help solve a problem. because I also understand my limitations. I'm brilliant in my sector, in the stuff that I'm good at, but I'm not brilliant at everything. So I need other people to come along with me. So as a leader, it's being able to say, this is actually a gift to have Nate who's specialized in this area, who's coming alongside to do this work. Because I can't do it in myself. And he makes me look good at the end of the day because I'll get all the praise.
Yeah.
Right? But we have to honor it from that place. And I think if we often find ourselves and think, oh, I'm doing you a favor by you having a job, I think that's it's a nonsensical way to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you start to see people follow you and give even more. I even tell people a lot of times, for me, leadership is one thing, right? Like, I think about it in time. When you tell me you need to be here 8 o'clock on the dot until 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no room for you to even do other stuff. I often say, if we're going to be so strict about it and we're going to be like watching each other's time, like it's 1 minute past 8 and you're late and you left the office 2 minutes to 5. And you're so like strict in that leadership way, there will come a day that you need me to stay beyond 5. But if you have engendered this idea of like non-negotiables, it's 8 to 5, and you need to stay like 30 minutes longer
What
to
about
5:30.
my time after 5? Yeah.
Then I'm not gonna do it
Exactly.
because I'm like, man, it's 5 o'clock. My time is done. Thank you very much. But a leader who has served, I can stay till 2 a.m.
Yep.
because I understand your heart. I understand your humanity. I understand the compassion with which you lead. But if you're harsh and you're like, I'm the boss or whatever, this is what I'm telling you, man, the labor says I've worked my 8 hours.
Yep. Yep.
You can't fire me for not working after 5. Do you know what I mean? So that's when you use the position to then engender people to respond.
Yeah.
Out of a punitive perspective.
Yeah.
From punishment, rather than saying, I want you to be part of this because we're building something as a community. And I think we can do both.
Yeah.
We have to unlearn this work culture of, again, it's a violent culture, because I think it's about one-upping somebody and showing that I'm powerful. If you have to exert your power by pushing other people down, then you're not really a leader anymore, right? Then that for me tells me everything that I need to know about who you are, and the kind of person that you are. And it just means that there's something lacking in terms of how you are engaging. But the flip side I also want to say is this. A lot of our leaders are equally wounded. Wounded in the sense that I think we're coming from a very racialized colonial time as a country. And we had to suppress a lot of our emotions ourselves and almost bring this hard shell that we lead with. But we need to do the work. We cannot use it as an excuse to continue to perpetuate that kind of leadership. The second thing I also want to flag is that as leaders, we need to do more work within ourselves to be more compassionate. And that compassion comes by us admitting to our own limitations. It's being honest about our own weaknesses and shortcomings, seeking help where we need, therapeutic help if we need that as well, so that we don't pass on that kind of harm. And we create a new kind of culture. And we can only really meet people to the level that we've met ourselves, to the depth that we have been honest, and to the depth that we've been broken about who we are. Our perfection is not what it is. I think people are looking for authenticity. I think people are looking for realness. And even Gen Z, I'm proud of this generation because I think they're unapologetic as a generation to say the way that we have operated it's not it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to stay this way. There's a different way to live. There's a different way to work. There's a different way to lead. There's a different way to serve. There's a different way to show up. So I love the Gen Zs, so they're a bit more bolder than even us fossils.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, not true. True. I like that. I think just to like round it off on that, it's maybe it's a bit more difficult to be a good leader the way you outlined it. And that's why a lot of people don't do it, because you have to put in the work yourself. You have to be an example for people to follow.
100%.
And not, I think most people that are in the space of position, because they don't have the skills or the qualities. So it becomes a bit frustrating, and because people aren't naturally drawn to you or influenced by you. So you try and use force as a crutch to, fill in that gap. But if you put in the work, individually to yourself, people tend to see it and they tend to want to be like you.
100%.
They've said, the laws of human nature is people want to feel recognized or important. Whenever you see someone driving a cool car, it's not that you admire the person in the car, but you see yourself driving the car.
Yes.
So you want the car.
Yes.
So in order for you to be a leader worth people following you, people want to sort of become like you
100%.
at some level.
100%.
For that to work. And people just don't put into work to be the type of leader that people want to follow you. So,
and I love that, because I think what it often shows, for me at least personally, is that for me to believe something, I need to see it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So meeting those folks who are professionals saying, I grew up in this village and now I'm running this big institution and this is my path I've gotten. It's like, oh, shucks, it's possible.
Exactly.
Right? Or even this kind of story that I just shared, where there's a different way that we think about hiring processes. Whoa, it's actually possible. So when somebody actually is successful and is leading and stuff like that, and you see that being modeled, it almost gives you that permission structure to say, well, actually, I can actually do this. Right?
Sure.
And that's why I think that exposure makes a significant difference, right? Like how even when I went to Joburg, it said, whoa, like look at this humongous city, like what's possible. It can be done. As Namibians, we can have access, we can play in this global field. We can equally be participants here. We don't have to shy back. We don't have to be feeling inferior.
Yeah.
Because somebody has broken that glass, right? They've gone through that barrier and shown that it's possible.
Yeah.
Right? They even talk about it in sports, how like almost 50 years ago, when you think about the 100 meters, nobody thought it was possible for us to go beyond 13 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then now people are like at 10 seconds or something like that they're pushing it. So again, like when somebody does it, then it actually becomes possible. And I think that's why maybe it's difficult for people who are front runners and pioneers, because often to change that culture, somebody has to have the courage
To do it.
to step up and say, hey, let's try a different way.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And hopefully start to change people's minds. Because again, we're creatures of habit as human beings. Even when it's toxic stuff, we stay in it because we like what we know rather than what is new and what is possible. Yeah.
True. Nice. What are you working on right now?
What I'm working on. So I've got an interesting collective that I'm busy with called the Public Heart Institute, where I'm working with a lot of youth organizations, both in Namibia and on the continent, and thinking about how do you make resources available. So how do you bring capital to young people that are doing this work? A lot of these guys have started organizations or are volunteering doing stuff, but don't have access or platform to articulate that. And so that's what I'm busy elevating there for them, and doing the best I can to try and connect them to funders, connect them to partners to help amplify the work. So that's something that's very, very exciting. And then 2, I am also doing some work on transitional justice. So it's work around post-colonial injustice that has taken place on the continent. So we're calling this year the year of justice for African people and people of African descent, and focusing on issues of colonialism, slavery, genocide, and historical harm and atrocities that have come on the continent. And my role really is highlighting the role of mental health in the impacts of intergenerational trauma, and how we need to think about rebuilding societies from a mental health perspective, and what architecture we need to put in place to make sure that when we're talking around issues of memory, truth telling of what has taken place, celebration of on inaugurating specific days, that is done from the survivor's perspective. The communities can feel like it's heard, especially Namibia's history, right? Like, we had a very painful history for 120 years of genocide in 1904, followed up by apartheid. It's just double atrocities happening in real time. So it's really thinking about restitution and justice, both in Namibia, but on the continent as well. So I am doing some work with incredible young people and experts across the continent to think about what does healing look like for us? Because again, we cannot talk about economic empowerment without realizing that the harm that was conflicted on us has to be also restored. And so that's exciting. I'm doing some work on leadership as well, that I'll be announcing soon, with some incredible people. Very, very exciting. So that keeps me up at night. Then I'm doing some work in Morocco, with an organization called PGPR Technologies. We're doing a biofertilizer that we're making. So trying to make food security more a reality for us as a continent, and using organic fertilizer that acts both as a pesticide, etc. So a small startup there in Morocco that is just doing amazing. We're expanding to West Africa soon, and hopefully to Southern Africa as well. And then some work on really narrative buildings through our PR and brand agency called Hexi. We're doing some work around how we can tell better stories, how we can better tell our collective African narratives around people that are doing incredible work. I'm profiling that a little bit more because I think we need to take ownership. We cannot wait for CNN or those guys to come and tell our stories. And similar to what you're doing here is platforming that work. So that's nice. Some stuff that I'm doing small here and there.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. But I'm really interested to see where everything goes, because I think you're a very sort of interesting person in the sense that you have so much experience and so much experience in a way where you've interacted with people, personally, like firsthand encounters, and you have a form of empathy that you can't just read a book and get it from that way, So that's a very interesting and admirable trait to have. But it obviously comes from a lot of work, a lot of input, a lot of experience. I mean, you started from 14 years old, so that's really that's true evidence that the type of leadership that you have in the spaces that you're in is of value to people. And I'm sure people look at you as a form of influence. They want to be like Steven in that sense. It might be easier for you to lead people that way. Yeah. So that's really rare and something to admire. So
no, thank you. I'm really grateful for community. If I had to tell you, Nate, I'm a product of it takes a village to raise a child. It took a village to raise me, and it's a village that I'm part of that gets to do the work. So I'm grateful that it's not as you said in the beginning, right? That the work is so much and it's heavy and it can feel isolating and exhausting, but it's been a joy because of the incredible people that have been in my corner. Those who I know personally, those who I know on the peripheral. And one of the things that I definitely am grateful for is even just the idea of somebody like just saying your name in rooms that you're not in.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to community again. Like it's not transactional. It's not about what I can get from you or what you can get from me. It's saying there's an issue in front of us. What can we do to solve it? And so I'm grateful for, if anything, the gift of community that I have access to, both in Namibia, on the continent, even in Europe, in the US, just like-minded people that I find and that I find or they find me. I don't know who finds whom, but it's something that I definitely don't take for granted. Because it would have made my life or my work a lot more difficult. And it is something to be grateful for. The gift of family and the gift of community and tribesmen that you really find along the way. It's just been incredible.
True. Nice. I always end by asking what advice, if you were to summarize maybe a few bullet points that you would give to someone younger than yourself, So.
I wrote a letter to my 18-year-old self a couple of years ago.
Nice.
Reflecting. And what I would say is this. Do it afraid. Do it with whatever you put your mind to do it. You might not have the resources, you might not have the time, you might not have the skill or the capacity. There's a lot of things why you should not do it. And you can probably list those. But if it's burning in your heart, do it. The rest will figure itself out. I think about a friend of mine who started a nonprofit in one of the informal settlements here. Just said, I want to see my community change, and started just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then just started growing. So do it. There'll be reasons why you shouldn't. So do it afraid. Do the work to find other people in your sphere. Find your people, right? And that's normally your peers. It's the guys that are in your circle. It's your friends. It's in your community. The people that you need are with you there. So build community. Don't do anything alone. Don't be afraid to fail. I think we often think, what will people say if this doesn't work out? So what if it doesn't work out? It didn't work out. Do something else. Something not working out is not to do always with you. It's even other circumstances. At least say you've tried. And then you can say that it is not worked. The last thing I would say is, don't be afraid to cry. Don't be afraid to feel. Don't be afraid to feel angry if you're disappointed about something. Don't be afraid to be sad if things don't work out. Don't be afraid to feel joy when things actually are great and somebody says, well done, like your project is doing great, your podcast is doing amazing, Nate. They'll be like, yeah, I'm just trying small. Take it. Take the compliment. So feel the range of emotions that come with being in life. Right? Sometimes you're going to be angry. Sometimes you're going to be sad. Sometimes you're going to be heartbroken. Other times you're going to be happy. Other times you're going to be full of joy. But hold those things lightly. But feel them, be present in that space. And enjoy your work and your life as you're going through it. Yes, you don't have everything that you need. You don't have everything that you want. But the moments you have, cherish those, right? With your family, with the people that you love. Doing the stuff that you enjoy, whether it's playing, whether it's writing, whether it's guitar, whether it's arts, whatever it is, throw yourself in those stuff. The last thing that I'll say, which has really changed my life, is don't overcommit yourself to one path or one career or one thing. Try many things. Learn a guitar, learn different language, try doing accounting. I mean, even if you just do a short course on that, YouTube is now available. There's many resources. So try different things. You're not, as a human being, you're not a singular facet of anything, right? So try different things. Some stuff you'll like, some stuff you won't like, but at least you get a feel of it. When I say try different things, I say try like stuff that's going to be productive. Within the bounds of what's legal and going to be lifting you up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like don't say like, oh, I'm just going to become an accountant and that's what I'm going to be. That's my track. And then if that doesn't work out, then you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Build your skill and your muscle in different areas. Push yourself out of your sector. Meet people that are in different worldviews or that are working in different areas. So like a lot of my friends are like chartered accountants. I don't like accounting. I don't like mathematics, but I enjoy them talking about their careers and what they're doing in their office and stuff like that, because it's not a world that I'm naturally part of, and it's not something I would naturally seek after, but it helps me to grow, right? So do those, right? I think you will thank your older self later that what you think is a waste of time today is actually become something useful. Even if you don't use that skill, at least you'll know somebody in that sector that becomes part of your community. So that would be my advice.
Well, perfect. Thanks. This was really great. Thanks for making the time to be here.
Thanks, my guy.
Sure.
Good conversation, my man.
Definitely. Same here.
Easy.